My name is Julian, and I'll never forget the day my world came crashing down. It was like a punch to the gut, a wake-up call that made me question everything I thought I knew about my life. But before that day, my life seemed perfect. I'd been married to my high school sweetheart, Samantha, for over 12 years. We had 2 beautiful kids, and our friends would often comment on how our family seemed so loving and perfect. I worked hard as an accountant in a small firm, and Samantha managed the household. We'd go on family vacations, attend school events, and enjoy quiet nights at home. Our friends would often ask us to host dinner parties, and we'd happily oblige. Life was good, or so I thought. But as the years went by, I started to notice little things that didn't add up. Samantha would sometimes get mysterious phone calls and step outside to take them. She'd occasionally mention expensive purchases or new investments without giving me many details. At first, I brushed it off as her being busy or me being paranoid. We'd sit down together on Sundays to review our finances, but I'd often leave the details to her. I trusted her completely, and I thought she was doing a great job managing our money. Looking back, I realized I was living in a bubble, unaware of the secrets she was keeping from me. Our life was like a well-rehearsed play, with each of us playing our roles perfectly. But behind the curtains, something was brewing, something that would change our lives forever. I just didn't know it yet. We'd host dinner parties, and our friends would rave about Samantha's cooking. She'd laugh and smile, playing the perfect hostess. I'd chime in, sharing stories about my day, and our friends would listen intently. Samantha would occasionally mention her passion for interior design, and I'd encourage her to pursue it. She'd spend hours browsing design magazines and websites, and I'd tease her about being a perfectionist. Our friends would often comment on how well we balanced our careers and family life. Samantha would nod in agreement, and I'd smile, feeling proud of our partnership. But behind closed doors, I'd occasionally notice discrepancies in our finances. Samantha would brush it off, saying it was just a minor mistake. I'd let it go, trusting her to manage our money. One evening, I came home early from work and found Samantha on the phone. She quickly ended the call, saying it was a wrong number. I didn't think much of it, assuming she was just being polite. As the days went by, I'd occasionally catch glimpses of mysterious texts or emails on her phone. She'd quickly delete them, or say they were work-related. I'd trust her explanation, thinking I was just being paranoid. Our life seemed perfect, but I was starting to sense that something wasn't quite right. I couldn't put my finger on it, but the feeling lingered, like a nagging doubt in the back of my mind. I walked into the house, calling out to Samantha. She wasn't responding. I checked the living room, kitchen, and even our bedroom, but she was nowhere to be found. Her phone was on the nightstand, and I noticed a text message from an unknown number. It simply said, "Meet me at the usual place at 5 p.m. My mind started racing with questions. Who was she meeting? Why was she keeping it a secret? I felt a pang of doubt and decided to investigate further. I began searching through her drawers and files, looking for any clues. That's when I stumbled upon a folder labeled Private. My heart sank as I opened it, and what I found shook me to my core. A series of bank statements with large transactions, but what caught my attention was the account holder's name, Samantha, and another name I didn't recognize, Alex. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. What was going on? Who was Alex? I sat down on the bed, staring blankly at the papers in my hand. My mind was reeling with questions, and I knew I had to get to the bottom of this. As I sat there, I heard the front door open. Samantha walked in, smiling and chatting on her phone. She seemed carefree, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. I watched her, feeling like a stranger in my own home. "Hey, honey," she said, noticing me. "What's wrong?" I didn't answer. I just handed her the folder and waited for her response. Her expression changed, and for a moment, I saw a glimmer of fear in her eyes. "Where did you find this?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "In your drawer," I replied, my voice firm. We sat down on the bed, the tension between us palpable. "Explain this to me," I demanded, my voice shaking with anger and hurt. Samantha took a deep breath and began to speak, but I wasn't sure I was ready to hear what she had to say. I sat on the bed, staring at the folder in my hand. The words, "Private" and "Alex" echoed in my mind. Who was Alex and what was Samantha's connection to him? I began to sift through the documents, my eyes scanning each page for any clue. Bank statements, emails, and cryptic messages all hinted at a secret life Samantha was leading. I walked to the study, determined to dig deeper. The computer was still on, and I quickly logged into Samantha's email account. The password was still saved, and I had access to all her messages. I scrolled through her inbox, searching for any mention of Alex. That's when I stumbled upon an email from an unknown sender with the subject, "Meeting today." The message was brief. "Meet me at the usual place at 5 p.m. A." My mind racing, I wondered if this was the same meeting Samantha had been keeping secret. I printed out the email, adding it to the growing pile of evidence. As I continued to search through her emails, I found more messages from Alex, each one more cryptic than the last. It seemed like they were discussing something in code, using vague references and metaphors. I felt like I was getting closer to the truth, but it remained elusive. The doorbell rang, breaking the silence. Samantha walked into the study, a look of concern on her face. "What's going on?" she asked, noticing the scattered papers and documents. I held up the folder. "I found this," I said, my voice firm. "Care to explain?" Samantha's eyes widened and she took a step back. "Where did you find that?" "In your drawer," I replied, my eyes locked on hers. "Who is Alex?" Samantha hesitated, and for a moment I thought she would deny everything. But then she took a deep breath and began to speak. "Alex is a friend," she started. I raised an eyebrow, skeptical. "A friend?" Samantha nodded. "Yes, we met through work. He's just a friend, nothing more." I wasn't convinced. The emails, the secret meetings, it all pointed to something more. I decided to push her further. "What's going on, Samantha? What's this all about?" Samantha's eyes darted around the room as if searching for an escape. I can explain," she stammered. But before she could continue, her phone rang, shrill in the tense silence. She hesitated, then picked it up. "Hello?" Her expression changed, and she listened intently. "I'll be there," she said finally before hanging up. "Who was that?" I asked, my curiosity piqued. Samantha looked at me, a mixture of fear and determination in her eyes. "I have to go," she said, turning to leave. "Not until we talk about this," I insisted, blocking her path. Samantha's eyes flashed with anger, but I stood firm. The air was thick with tension as we faced off, each of us refusing to back down. I sat across from Samantha, my eyes locked on hers. "I want the truth," I said, my voice firm. Samantha took a deep breath and began to speak. "I met Alex through a business deal," she said, her voice measured. "It was supposed to be a one-time thing, but it turned into something more." "What do you mean?" I asked, my curiosity piqued. Samantha hesitated, collecting her thoughts. "Alex and I started working together on some investments," she explained. "He promised me high returns, and I thought it would be a good way to make some extra money." I raised an eyebrow, skeptical. "And?" Samantha's voice dropped to a whisper. "I lost track of the money," she admitted. "I don't know where it all went. Alex said he'd help me get it back, but—" I felt a surge of anger. "But what?" Samantha's eyes welled up with tears. "I think he's been using me," she said, her voice shaking. "I don't know what to do." I sat back, stunned. "How much money are we talking about?" Samantha's voice was barely audible. "A lot. Hundreds of thousands of dollars." My mind reeled as I processed the information. "How could you be so reckless?" I asked, trying to keep my anger in check. Samantha shook her head. "I don't know. I was blinded by the promise of easy money. I didn't think it would come to this." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of her words sinking in. "What now?" I asked finally. Samantha looked at me, determination in her eyes. "I'll fix this," she said. "I'll find a way to pay back the money and make it right." I wasn't sure if I believed her, but I knew we had to try. "Let's get to the bottom of this," I said, my voice firm. "We'll figure it out together." But as I looked at Samantha, I couldn't shake the feeling that our problems were only just beginning. We sat across from each other, the tension between us thick. "How could you do this to me?" I asked, my voice low and even. Samantha shook her head. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she said, her voice defensive. "I was in over my head, and I didn't know how to get out." I leaned forward, my eyes locked on hers. "You didn't think about me or our family," I said, my voice rising. "You only thought about yourself and your own desires." Samantha's face reddened. "That's not fair," she said, her voice matching mine. "I did it for us, for our future." I laughed, a harsh sound. "For our future?" I repeated. "You've ruined us, Samantha. You've ruined everything we've worked for." The argument escalated, our words cutting deep. We both said things we couldn't take back, and the damage was done. As the fight wore on, I realized that this was more than just about the money. This was about trust and betrayal. This was about the foundation of our marriage, and whether it was strong enough to withstand the weight of Samantha's actions. The shouting match continued, with neither of us willing to back down. But beneath the anger, I could feel the cracks in our relationship growing wider, threatening to consume us both. Finally, exhausted and drained, we fell silent, the only sound the heavy breathing and the weight of our words hanging in the air. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. Samantha looked at me, tears streaming down her face. "I don't expect you to," she said, her voice cracking, "but I hope you can try." The silence that followed was oppressive, a heavy blanket that suffocated us both. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew that things would never be the same again. The silence between us stretched on, heavy with unspoken words. I stood up, my movements slow and deliberate. "I need some time," I said, my voice firm. Samantha nodded, her eyes downcast. "I understand," she whispered. I walked out of the room, leaving her alone with her thoughts. I needed space, time to process what had happened. The weight of her betrayal still lingered, making it hard to think clearly. As I walked through the house, I felt like a stranger in my own home. Everything seemed different now, tainted by the revelation of Samantha's secret. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had been living a lie. I ended up in the backyard, standing by the pool, staring out at the water. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over everything. But even the beauty of the scene couldn't lift the darkness that had settled over me. I stood there for a long time, lost in thought. My mind kept circling back to the same questions. How could she do this to me? How could she betray me like this? As the sun dipped below the horizon, I finally stirred, my body stiff from standing still for so long. I knew I couldn't stay out here forever, avoiding the reality of our situation. I took a deep breath and turned back towards the house. I had to face whatever came next, no matter how difficult it might be. As I walked back inside, I saw Samantha sitting on the couch, her eyes red from crying. She looked up at me, and for a moment, our eyes met. "What are we going to do?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I shook my head, unsure of the answer. "I don't know," I said, my voice firm, "but we need to figure it out." The uncertainty hung in the air, a question mark over our future. We both knew that things couldn't go on as they were, but what came next was far from clear. I stared at the stack of unpaid bills, my mind reeling with the numbers. How had it come to this? We'd always been careful with our finances, or so I thought, but now, with the bank statement spread out before me, the truth was undeniable. Samantha walked into the room, a look of concern on her face. "What's wrong?" she asked, noticing the papers scattered across the table. I looked up at her, my anger simmering just below the surface. "You know exactly what's wrong," I said, my voice low and even. Samantha's expression faltered, and she took a step back. I can explain," she stammered. I raised an eyebrow, skeptical. "Explain," I repeated. "How can you possibly explain this?" Samantha hesitated, her eyes darting around the room. "I was trying to make some extra money," she said finally. "I didn't want to burden you with it." I laughed, a harsh sound. "Burden me," I said. "You've burdened us both." We're on the brink of financial disaster, and you expect me to believe you did it for us? Samantha's face reddened, and she took a step forward. That's not fair, she said, her voice rising. I was trying to help. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. Help, I repeated. You've destroyed us, Samantha. You've destroyed our financial security, our trust. The argument escalated, our words cutting deep. We both said things we couldn't take back, and the damage was done. As the fight wore on, I realized that this was more than just about the money. This was about trust and betrayal. This was about the foundation of our marriage, and whether it was strong enough to withstand the weight of Samantha's actions. The shouting match continued, with neither of us willing to back down. But beneath the anger, I could feel the cracks in our relationship growing wider, threatening to consume us both. Finally, exhausted and drained, we fell silent, the only sound the heavy breathing and the weight of our words hanging in the air. I don't know if I can do this anymore, I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. Samantha looked at me, tears streaming down her face. What do you mean? She asked, her voice shaking. I took a deep breath, the words feeling like acid on my tongue. I mean, I don't know if I can stay in this marriage. The words hung in the air, a challenge to our relationship and to our future together. I looked at her, my eyes locked on hers. I need you to be honest with me, I said, my voice firm. I need to know what's going on, and I need to know now. She hesitated, her eyes darting around the room. I don't know what you want me to say, she stammered. I took a step closer to her. I want the truth, I said, my voice rising. I want to know what's been going on behind my back. She looked up at me, tears welling up in her eyes. I'm sorry, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I was in over my head, and I didn't know how to get out. I studied her face, searching for any sign of deception. But all I saw was desperation and fear. Here's what's going to happen, I said finally, my voice firm. You're going to tell me everything, and you're going to do it now. And then, we're going to figure out how to fix this. She nodded, her eyes streaming with tears. Okay, she said, her voice shaking. I waited, my eyes locked on hers. Start talking, I said. She took a deep breath and began to speak, her words spilling out in a rush. I listened, my face set in a stern expression, as the truth finally began to come out. As she spoke, the pieces began to fall into place. I realized the extent of her actions, and the weight of her deception hit me like a ton of bricks. When she finished speaking, I felt numb. I didn't know what to say or what to do. Here's the deal, I said finally, my voice cold. We're going to get through this, together. But if you ever lie to me again, if you ever betray me like this again, it's over. Do you understand? She nodded, her eyes wide with fear. Yes, she whispered. I understand. I studied her face, searching for any sign of uncertainty, but all I saw was determination and a hint of desperation. Good, I said, my voice firm, because I'm not sure how much more of this I can take. I packed my bags, the silence between us oppressive. Samantha stood in the doorway, her eyes red from crying. Please don't go, she said, her voice shaking. I looked at her, my expression firm. I need some space, I said. I need time to think. Samantha nodded, her eyes welling up with tears again. I understand, she whispered. I walked past her, my bags in hand. I'll be back, I said. But for now, I need to be away from here. The drive to my friend's house was long and quiet. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I needed time to process everything. When I arrived, my friend greeted me with a concerned expression. What's going on? He asked. I shook my head, feeling a mix of emotions. It's Samantha, I said. I found out some things and I don't know if I can forgive her. My friend nodded, his expression understanding. You need time to think, he said. You're welcome to stay here as long as you need. I nodded, feeling a sense of relief. Thanks, I said. I appreciate it. The days passed slowly, each one a chance for me to reflect on my marriage. I thought about Samantha, about our life together, and about the secrets she'd kept from me. I knew I had a decision to make, but I wasn't sure what the right choice was. All I knew was that I needed to take my time and figure out what I truly wanted. As the days turned into weeks, I began to realize that my marriage was at a crossroads. I didn't know if we could move forward or if it was time to let go. But one thing was certain. I needed to make a decision, and soon. I sat in my friend's living room, staring blankly at the wall. My mind was a jumble of thoughts, each one more confusing than the last. My friend walked in, a cup of coffee in his hand. "Hey, you okay?" he asked, noticing my expression. I shook my head. "I don't know," I admitted. "I feel lost." He sat down next to me. "You're not alone," he said. "We'll get through this together." I looked at him, grateful for his support. "Thanks," I said. "I don't know what I'd do without you." He smiled. "You'll never have to find out," he said. As the days passed, I began to heal. I started talking to a therapist, working through my feelings and trying to make sense of what had happened. It wasn't easy, but slowly, I started to feel like myself again. I started to see a way forward, a path that didn't involve the pain and anger I'd been feeling. One day, my therapist asked me a question that made me stop and think. "What do you want for your future?" she asked. I hesitated, unsure of the answer. But as I thought about it, I realized that I wanted to move forward, to heal and to rebuild. "I want to be happy," I said finally, the words feeling like a declaration. My therapist smiled. "That's a great place to start," she said. I left her office feeling hopeful, feeling like I might finally be on the path to recovery. It wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to take the first step. As I walked away from her office, I felt a sense of determination. I was going to get through this, and I was going to come out stronger on the other side. The journey ahead would be long and difficult, but I was ready. I was ready to face whatever came next and to build a better future for myself. I sat on the beach, the waves crashing against the shore. The sound was soothing, calming. I closed my eyes, letting the peacefulness wash over me. As I sat there, I thought about the past few months. The revelation, the anger, the pain. It had been a difficult journey, but I was finally starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. I realized that I had been given a second chance, a chance to rebuild and grow. I was determined to make the most of it. I opened my eyes, looking out at the ocean. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over everything. I thought about Samantha, about our marriage and our struggles. I thought about the secrets and the lies. But most of all, I thought about the lessons I'd learned. I realized that relationships take work, that trust needs to be earned and nurtured. I realized that people make mistakes, but it's how we learn from those mistakes that matters. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I knew that I still had a long way to go, but I was ready for the journey. I stood up, brushing the sand off my pants. I took a deep breath, feeling the salty air fill my lungs. I knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, but I was ready. I was ready to face whatever came next, armed with the knowledge and experience I'd gained. The stars were starting to come out, twinkling in the night sky. I smiled, feeling a sense of hope and renewal. I knew that I would be okay, that I would make it through this, and I knew that I would come out stronger on the other side. Reflect on your own relationships and ask yourself, what secrets are hiding in plain sight? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below, and let's start a conversation about building stronger, more honest relationships. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more thought-provoking content.